button for anybody that could make it. The times that we're in are so interesting, and I love kind of being a voice of reason. I'll talk a little bit about my background and where I developed that voice of reason, but I just want to also invite you to other events. We have an event on November 30th where we talk about different ways that you can network that feel more authentic. And then we also do, every month we do something called Lunch and Leap. They're super inspirational. We use a methodology called What If Up. They're great pick-me-ups, but you'll get really, really cool idea from your peers. It's collaborative brainstorming methodology. So you're welcome to join any of those. My purpose is to inspire potential. That's what I live to do. I created a portfolio of companies. It's kind of like a purposeful Shark Tank. And we cultivate our own concepts. And then we also invest in conscious businesses. I've got two areas that I'm focused on, three. One is sustainable beauty. The second one is solar. And then the third one is kind of on a borderline of impact work and kind of like my personal passion for helping folks that are in impoverished communities and bringing solutions to them. I'm getting some background noise there. Somebody might want to mute. In the Cultivator, we developed a methodology called the Conscious Business Growth Platform. And I've been using that with all of our brands as well as consulting on it for a while. We have 5 concepts up, and ShiftCo is the 5th that we launched in 2020, which is cool. So all of these brands came out of the Cultivator, and I eat my own dog food, as they like to say, and follow that cultivation process. It really does work, and it's fun. So jumping into the topic, we'll talk about the recession and how yellow lights lead to red lights and all that good stuff. We'll talk about the illusion of certainty and how humans respond to that. And then we'll go through these 5 ways. And as we go through these 5 ways, I will pause because you all are successful business owners and you're going to have your own perspectives on them. And I want to capture that for the folks that will be listening later. So the first one is kind of yellow lights turning to red lights. I think we started hearing about a recession midpoint last year, and like, are you kidding me? We just went through now we got inflation and then, COVID, and it was like, are you kidding me? So it is a moment in time where Warren Buffett says yellow lights always turn red. There's yellow lights and they've been firing off for a while. It's not an illusion. The part that is an illusion is that there's been certainty in the past. That's the part that we have to reckon with when the stock market, went up in spite of a global pandemic. That also is an illusion. It's like, we have a global pandemic, it comes down and it goes right back up, and we're thinking everything is great. And as an investor, I follow the stock market very closely and have a lot of tools and a lot of advisors that I work with to really understand what's happening, because as an investor, you've got to really time, what you're investing in, where you're investing it. And what I've really learned is this idea of certainty is this massive illusion. And if you really take a step back and you look at all of the recession, so you could, maybe take a snapshot, or if you like this chart, I can send it to you, all of these different things that, wars, 9/11, first man on the moon, there are these factors that cause the market to respond. What's unique about this particular recession that we're on the cusp of, and it is unique, is that there has been an illusion of certainty. These yellow lights were actually there prior to COVID. They were actually starting to show up in 2019 and early 2020, and then COVID happened, and then obviously, we know that that really kind of caused people to freak out, and we saw the market drop, and then it came back. But if you, again, that's why I like to kind of to really back away from this. This is almost 100 years worth of data here. whether the market goes up or down is almost always driven by emotion. So I'm reacting emotionally. I might have a holding, I might have assets in that holding. I'm reacting emotionally. I see other people reacting emotionally, and I do something in the stock market. Well, if I'm holding a lot of assets and I start selling those assets, the market responds negatively and other people start to sell. And so the market is a lagging indicator. So the stock market is a lagging indicator. What it does comes after what's actually happening. So what we're about to go into, I believe, is going to be a very long and protracted recession. And it's not unusual. We've had these kinds of recessions before, which is where I'm going to focus with these 5 strategies and really thinking about from history, what did the companies do when there was a protracted recession that meant that it went on for a while and the market just didn't rebound? 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, that was a protracted recession. The difference is the market fell fast. So if you really look at and isolate 08 and 09, you can see right there, boy, it came down fast. This time, it's not as likely to come down fast. It's going to go a little bit slower. So it's going to be protracted on the way down, is my guess. And it's going to be protracted on the way up. And so the net of that is it's going to take a while for it to become, the roaring times that we've been used to in the last decade. So the good news about that is we can see that coming. The challenging part is how we're responding. How do we get stuck? And I just want you to think for a second about some of the things that you've heard yourself say in your head. Have you said things like, oh, I don't know, recession's coming. I don't know if I should hire somebody. Or have you said, the economy is a little shaky right now. I don't know if I should do da 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 da. That, if that voice is playing in your head, then you're basically kind of getting sucked into this emotional vortex. And the irony is, from history, if you really study the business leaders that were successful on the other side of the recession, which is really where these 5 techniques came from. If you really study them, they do not respond to that emotion. They have a way of insulating themselves from that emotion. So here's what I mean by that. So a crisis hits, let's say COVID, inflation. Now they're talking about stagflation, which would not be great for Q4 and Q1. Crisis hits, 9/11, the bubble bursting in real estate, in 08 and 09. Crisis hits. Humans go through 3 predictable phases. So think back to COVID, since that happened recently, February, March, April of 2020. Crisis hits. We realize COVID is here. The folks in New York got it first. And like, whoa, right? And so what humans go through the stabilization, they try to reach stasis, and they triage, they assess, and they learn. And these 3 little subphases in this big phase of stabilizing, the natural human psychosis is to get back into stabilize. So the process that we go through is triage, assess, and learn. And the weird thing about a protracted recession is the crisis is technically already hit, but people aren't necessarily moving through this first phase. So they're kind of stuck in this first phase. Your clients might be stuck, your team members, your contractors, your partners that you're working with might be stuck. They get stuck in this first phase when there's a protracted recession like the one that we're in now, where, are we having a recession? Or are we not? Think about the holiday spending that's coming up. Are people going to spend more? Or are they going to spend less? You're getting lots of mixed signals. It's because the crisis isn't necessarily as obvious as it was February, March of 2020. People know inflation's really high. There's lots of bad news, but they don't really know how to read it. And so they don't really effectively move through first phase. And what I'm hoping to do today is to help you move through the first phase. We're already in a recession. It's just not as obvious. Just accept it. Start really looking at your business. We're going to do triage and assess today with a couple of these techniques. Learn what you need to learn, stabilize, move to phase two. Phase two is where the companies that come out super strong on the other side, they're change makers. Phase two, the quicker you get to phase two, the healthier you will be coming through this recession. So we want to get through phase one. And part of why I want to give you these 5 techniques is to help you get through phase one, because technically it's already hit, it's already here. We've got to really kind of look at where we need to focus, make an assessment, learn what we need to learn from it, learn how to go forward, which is really where these 5 techniques came from. Get ourselves into phase two, where we have very focused action. So it's the focused action in phase two that really causes businesses to excel. And then they integrate the benefits. And the beautiful thing is they come out stronger on the other side. Now, the challenge is this: we long for stability as humans. Our ego does not like things to be uncertain. So we have this kind of fairy tale thought that, oh, wow, it used to be so wonderful, which if, a minute ago, I showed you that chart, not so much, but we long for stability. And part of what causes us not to stabilize is we're just wondering what it would be like. And, remember when, just think about those first 3, 4, 5 months of COVID, oh gosh, and that actually slows us down. So we want to get through that today with these 5 techniques. And we want to move ourselves into phase two, because ignoring that it's happening or longing for, when things were a little more certain as if they ever were, that's what prevents us from preparing for what's ahead. Now, before we go through these 5 techniques, I want to stop and see if anybody has questions, or if you've got some insights that you want to share, because I believe in collaborative learning. Does anybody have a question, or does anybody want to share anything? And if you put something in the chat, my team member that was supposed to help me with this couldn't make it today, so I can't read the chat. But I would love to have anybody comment or ask questions.
So Terri, I want to say something about homeostasis, because I teach family systems, and I love, this is great. We are always trying to get back to where we thought we needed to be. That's that picture. And whatever that is, I mean, it doesn't, even if it's not good, or healthy, we're always looking for some way to balance and get back. And I think this is great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the reason why, I'm glad you mentioned that, because you're absolutely correct. It happens in family dynamics as well, is if there's a tendency to ignore, or a tendency to wish things were a different way, you're basically going to stay stuck in phase one. And the power, the pivot opportunity is getting into phase two, where you start making focused actions that are non-emotional. That's what we want to get through today, is we want to get you guys into phase two. Recession's already here. Just accept it. The market's a little misleading right now. It's going to go up and down and up and down, and then it's going to start next year, going to fall down, and it's going to be obvious to everyone. Just accept it. And we want to get into that focused action in phase two. So thanks for pointing that out, Lisa. Any questions or comments or anything you want to add before we get into these 5 ways? All right. So way number 1, I am going to use a very current example. I'm older than I look. I'm almost 60. It's hard to believe that. But I used to use one from a previous generation, which was Kmart, if you remember Kmart. Now you have a really, really visible one, and that is Instagram's reaction to TikTok. So if you pay any attention to social media, Instagram started getting their clock cleaned by TikTok. And so Instagram tried to copy TikTok and lost a large portion of their users. They lost a lot of advertising revenue. So the first idea is to not try to be like anybody else. Don't worry about your competitors. Don't worry about if you lose a client, don't worry about it. You really want to almost retreat into really being you and just looking at this as an opportunity to level up. If Instagram had just said, you know what, TikTok has this one thing that they're doing really well. We've got these 3 things that we're doing really well, rather than worrying about this one thing that TikTok is doing really well that people are using. What if we got better and leveled up the 3 things that we do really well? They would have been in a much healthier place. And if you paid any attention to the TikTok, Instagram hype that happened in the last, kind of blew up about 3 months ago, and they've been trying to recover ever since, and they've gone back and they've changed things back to the way it used to be. And now they're trying to bring people back on their platform. That's such a visible example of what we're talking about. What you don't want to do is you don't want to react by throwing away what's good. What you do want to do is you want to retreat to what is authentically you, what is unique and powerful about you and your business, and make that better rather than reacting. Another thing that I frequently hear in the video space, in music, 5 years ago, I heard this on music platforms. Well, now that they're selling songs this way, and now that you can buy music this way, it's hurting my industry over here. I'm hearing the same thing on video. Well, now that, now that people can, buy these little blah, blah, blah videos, it's hurting my business. And I'm telling you, that is not true. That is not true. You're reacting to something external. And the same thing is true, services businesses, pick a business. The same thing is true when there's a recession, is that we start to believe this story. Well, people aren't going to buy from me right now. Because, they're nervous and they're not sure what to do. And then the next thing you know, we're looking for data to reinforce that, as opposed to saying, what do I do really well, regardless how the rest of the world is responding? I'm not going to respond to competitors. I'm not going to respond to this recession. I'm going to retreat and anchor to what I do well. And I'm going to level that up, which basically means I'm going to double down and make that better. The way that I do that consistently is I have trained myself to wake up every day with this one question. And I literally do this. Anybody that knows me knows I do this. Who do I serve and what do they need from me right now? Who do I serve and what do they need from me right now? So every single day, no matter what is happening in the universe, I wake up and my first thought, beyond telling my beautiful wife how much I love her and when am I going to get my coffee, is I basically say, who do I serve and what do they need from me right now? And I start my day with this just being me. I have these clients that I care about. What do they need from me today? What are they going through? What do they need from me? And I've trained myself to ask this question. It's a beautiful question if you think about it, because what it allows you to do is to not react. So if Instagram had said, who do I serve and what do they need from me right now? They wouldn't have tried to copy TikTok. They would have said, who do I serve? I serve these kinds of people. What they need from me are these kinds of things. And that's in my wheelhouse. I'm going to get better at doing those things. And that focusing on improving your product or service, and so that should be expect to grow, not expect to grow. Sorry, typo. Focusing on improving your product and or service and expecting to grow, even if growth is stalled because of uncertainty. You don't want to let the outside world cause you to change. Just basically wake up, fine, recession, so what? Wake up each day. Who do I serve? What do they need from me right now? Now, if you study, I told you we were going to talk about history lessons. If you study the businesses and the business leaders that came out stronger on the other side of recession, this is what they did with their organizations. One of my favorites is the Swiss Army knife company, and they had watches, and they basically said, you know what, who do we serve and what do they need from me right now? They're not buying these products. And they basically retreated their entire company, and they went back and they put up pictures all around the office of their persona customers. And they challenged every employee in the company. They said, we're not going to lay anybody off. We're going to challenge everybody in the company to basically start thinking about who is our customer. You've got Bob, you've got Sally, you've got so-and-so, and what do they need from us right now? And they completely started innovating their product set. And slowly but surely, they started rolling out new products that are now in demand, and they came out stronger from that last recession. So before we go to way number 2, I want to stop and see if anybody has questions or comments, because this is the foundational element of how to really come out of this recession stronger, and in a really healthy way. Questions or comments?
I have a quick question or comment. How do you know that your thinking when you do that retreat and that focusing isn't being influenced by what you're seeing in the market?
Yeah,
like
great.
how can you? Yeah.
Great question. So in the beginning, now it's so natural. It's almost like today, because I've been doing this for so long, it's almost like I'm on the same wavelength with my clients. I don't need to do this as much. But what I did in the beginning, when I first started doing this, I started my first business in 2002. So I got to kind of live this up front and center, is I just had conversations with them. Hey, Elizabeth, how's your business going? I know things are really tight. What do you need right now? And I just started with conversations and not trying to sell anything, just literally this earnest, authentic, what do you need right now? What's most important to you right now as you're going through this? And I'd make a note, go, tomorrow, another client, what do you, hey, Sally, what's going on right now? What do you need right now? And whereas today it's a little more automatic because I'm on this constant wavelength. When I first started it, that's how I got there. And what you'll have to work through is they're going to be emotional, right? Just, keep breathing, just breathe. We'll talk about some of the other techniques in a minute. But just try to get to this place where you're bringing Curious George to the table to really try to understand what it is that they need. And then, thank you, I'm going to take that back and I'm going to reflect on that. It's not trying to sell them anything. It's just simply taking it in as a piece of information and figuring out, what you're going to do with it. Lisa, I saw you have a hand. I bet you've got some comments on this because you're one of the masters at it.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you, but also to call out, what you wrote in caps here, which is expect to grow. So that's the antithesis, right? And we're so impacted by energy. And so I think, what my takeaway just from this one slide is to be conscious of what can I also do not to get sucked into, the sort of collective energy of, fear. And that is a very specific intention that you've just made very, very tangible and very clear. Expect to grow. And then we can also infuse that into our clients or our potential clients as well. Imagine if you grew during this time.
And don't even imagine it, expect the heck out of it. It's going to happen. Absolutely. Love that, Lisa. And I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the energy of curiosity, which to me is a lighter, approachable, as opposed to the steady diet of fear that we get every day. And so I love that you brought in the idea of curiosity, because I think, it relates to so many different things, but particularly in this context. So thank you.
I love that. I love that. Trisha.
Oh, sorry, mute. I just put in the chat, like, I remember during the pandemic being stuck for months at a time and being completely frustrated, and seeing a number of other people in my field just kind of respond to what's going on. And I feel like I could do the same thing, but why am I not doing the same thing? It just didn't feel authentic to me. And I also got to a place where I was just not happy with my business. So that, I think, amplified the problem.
Oh, that's a great point.
And I lost a bunch of clients. So all of those things amplified the sort of, woe is me, what am I doing? And I got into a place of, I don't know if it's curiosity, but I just got desperately into search mode. So it was just searching for like, what's next? What's the way out? What do I stand for? What's the brand? What do I want to give to the world? So I just went into this search mode, and then I started searching for partners or people to help me execute on those things. And that led me to like Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses and other programs where other people that are also in search for how to be better and do better. And then eventually I found a brand strategist that completely helped me rebrand. And so like everything else flourished out of there, so that now what I have is a brand that I love, and everything coming out of it is authentic to who I am and what I want to see in the world. I just wish that didn't take a year to get to. So my question is, how do you shorten the time frame? I mean, I know you're giving us 5 ways, but like, how do you it's really hard to shift from position 1 to position 2 when not only are the microeconomics not in your favor, but the other things like internally are not in your favor.
Yeah, we're going to get to that when we get to some of the other pieces, but I can tell you that the beautiful thing about conscious business, and why I've committed my life to helping conscious businesses grow, is your business grows as you evolve. Your business grows as you evolve. And that is so different than a traditional business. I don't even know if I even work anymore with traditional businesses. I might have a few clients left, but the me evolving my energy, me evolving my focus, me evolving my attitude, me evolving the way that I'm perceiving, me evolving the way I'm serving my clients, that's what causes the business to grow. And all of that's internal. And you can retool your business and move through those 3 phases way quicker if you will just stay focused on, hey, this is happening for me, it's not happening to me. This is happening for me, it's not happening to me. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to pivot and level up. Okay, so that's a good segue to number 2, because that really speaks to conscious businesses in particular. Obsessively focus on value. So here's the biggest insight from analyzing these companies over the last 100 years that ended up in a better place on the other side of some type of major economic change. They obsessively focused on value. And this is why I believe conscious businesses have a huge, and I mean huge, strategic advantage. If you think about it, so this is research that I did about 3 years ago. I was trying to understand at the time, I knew there was this thing that we now call a conscious entrepreneur. And it's bigger than a conscious business to me. A conscious entrepreneur makes very different decisions from the genesis of their business, not just day to day, but from the genesis of their business, the start of their business. And so I was trying to understand this dynamic. I was talking to my friend, Carrie Freeman Parsons. She's on the board of Conscious Capitalism. And I was like, Carrie, I'm trying to really articulate this thing. And she helped me frame this research study. And what we found is that conscious entrepreneurs start a business in a very different way. And because we started our business in a very different way, we kind of got to get back to that for just a second. So the first thing that they do when they're thinking about their product, a quote unquote regular entrepreneur will say, will someone buy it? Conscious entrepreneur says, will it solve a problem? From the get-go, their business is designed to solve a problem. That's a huge strategic advantage right now compared to all of your competitors that are not necessarily, their business didn't start that way. Your business is designed to solve a problem. What problem is that? You might have forgotten, because we get so busy building the business and working in the business and payroll and this and challenge here and challenge there, and trying to manage our family. We've gotten away from that. So go back to, what is the problem you started your business to solve? Focus there, focus back on that. Secondly, with the way we price, an entrepreneur will say, what will someone pay? So they want to charge market rate. A conscious entrepreneur prices based on value. How much is it worth? How much is it worth? Now, of course, the counterbalance to that, as I've learned in the last decade or so, is that pushes my self-worth buttons. I had to do a lot of work in the last 10 years on self-worth, because I sometimes don't always value myself, if I tell the truth, and I had to work on that. But that's a huge strategic advantage. So it's not about lowering your price or raising your price. Is how much is it worth? What's the value of it? One of my favorite stories is one of our clients in our demand generation firm was a barbecue restaurant chain. They had 6, 7 restaurants in San Antonio and I think 11 in Austin, a barbecue restaurant chain. COVID happens. I wake up going, okay, what does she need from me right now? We started literally as COVID was happening, they knew they were going to have to shut down, and we started talking and we started literally brainstorming. They were actually able to raise their prices in the middle of COVID, change their model so that as soon as they could serve food again, they grew 10 to 14%. They grew 10% 2020 to 2021, and 14% 2021 to 2022, because they focused on what is the problem our customers need. You know what? They're not coming in for barbecue. They're coming in because their whole family's home. They need a family pack, and they immediately changed their product strategy, and they started offering these family packs. You literally could drive in, park, come out, boom, they hand you your family pack, you go home. And it became so popular and their revenue went up that they actually said, you know what, this family pack is worth a lot. They had like 4 of them. We're going to be able to raise our prices a little bit. But the value we're going to add is we're going to give you a quick way to order it so that it's ready when you drive up. And that's an example. A barbecue restaurant, not only did they not shut down on COVID, but they grew their business year over year, 2 years in a row through the pandemic, and they got to raise their prices. They're in way better place right now than they were before because they focused on value. And the third thing, and my favorite, is an entrepreneur, when they're thinking about success, they're like, how much money can I make? How much success can I have? A conscious entrepreneur says, can I make a difference? And the product part and the success part, will it solve a problem? Can I make a difference? That's why you started your business, but you might have forgotten it. Now's the time to go back to that. What is the problem your product or service solves? How are you making a difference? That retreating that we talked about in the first way, that's where you want to put your energy. And you want to put all of your energy, not what's happening out here, is what is the problem we're solving? How can I make the most difference possible in these uncertain times that I'm in, and allow the innovation for your product and service to come from this? So I know you guys have probably ideas that you want to add to this. I'd love for you to jump in and share your ideas about this obsessively focusing on value. Any takers?
Elizabeth does. I was just going to comment that everything that you said makes sense, and it creates a foundation that gives me confidence. It's rooted in why I started my business, and it's not letting the outside get me crazy. Because I think these things, you just keep asking the problem: who do I serve? How do I serve them? It's solving the problem. How much is it worth? Can I make a difference? And all those things matter. And I think bring sanity to the customer too.
Love that, Elizabeth. Anybody else want to add anything to that? Lisa?
Yeah, I'd say that my experience has been also giving space, sort of along the lines of the curiosity conversation, giving space to people to, and ask them, what is their problem? Specifically. And that has really changed the nature of the conversation that I've been having with clients. They know that they're in trouble. Usually their fear levels are much higher than the problem warrants, because again, we're all picking up on each other's anxiety. And just by articulating, well, what is the problem? And then it's just an easy match, because they're already in conversation with you because they know that there's something there. So, having them articulate the problem that they need to solve, has also just helped me stay very grounded and very focused, and not wanting to save the world by Wednesday. But, just like, what do they need right now? And
Yeah.
then when they say it out loud, then it feeds into that. So, what is the value of that to you? And then there's not that uncomfortable, well, how much is it or whatever. It's like, oh my gosh, if we could get that done by March, that would, our ROI would be, whatever it is. And it's then when you serve up the fee, it seems to flow into their thought process already.
So true, Lisa. So true. You nailed it. And I'll give you, let's extend this one step further. Differentiation, that concept, is being different in a way that matters to your buyer. Now, when people think about differentiation, they forget this last part right here. Well, I want to be different. I want to be better. I want to tell you why I'm great. That's not what differentiation really is. Differentiation is being different in a way that matters to your buyer. And I'll give you a couple of case examples. I was blessed to have the opportunity to work with a brand a couple of years ago in the previous company that I sold. And their target market was women shopping for groceries. Their problem was they needed healthy snacks for their family, but they wanted them to taste good, quite honestly. So we basically worked on a differentiation strategy for them: taste great, healthy, and what are the options they have. And at the time, that brand was called Avo Classic. And we worked with them to rebrand. That was a level up, right? And this was in the middle of one of these economic challenges, right? And we worked with them to rebrand that company. You probably know it today as Holy Guacamole. Think about that. Like, their brand was called Avo Classic. What does that say about healthy and taste good? They use those economic challenges to basically completely rebrand to Holy Guacamole. They sold themselves several years ago for like 700 million. It was like ridiculous, all because they focused on the value. So that's an example of leveling up. Now, Tricia, you talked about that. You rebranded during COVID. That's an example of really getting back to, who do I serve? What do they need from me right now? What do they care about? And how can I really build off of that? Another one that I absolutely love, in the restaurant space, their buyer is me. I want to be healthy, but I need to eat fast, baby. I got to go. And they, here's all the options available to them. And you've got lots of, brands that are in that upper category. Well, they branded Snappy Salads, and they're known for healthy, quick, get in, get out, ready to roll. Some of the salads are, you can just go in and get them. And, they have done super well, and they did well through the pandemic. So that's an example of what we mean. And here's Shifco. Shifco's, our members are, I want to grow my business and I want to make the world better. They need a roadmap. And so if you really kind of look, and they want results. So if you really look at that, and the experience really matters, these are all the options available to them. Well, we branded ourselves as the business growth platform for entrepreneurs that want to make the world better. And that's an example of taking a position. Like, this is your opportunity not to retreat. This is your opportunity to take a position and dominate your marketplace based on value. That's the competitive advantage we have, is we're going to win based on value. Okay, questions about that, comments before we get into way number 3?
Can you just
All right.
go back? Can you just
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you just go back to that slide, or what's the quote, the differentiation is? You don't have to go back to the slide, just
Differentiation is being different in a way that matters to your buyer. That's the secret. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm differentiated. I'm telling you why I'm great. Doesn't matter. Differentiation is being different in a way that matters to your buyer. So each of these brands, if I go back to Holy Guacamole, the marketplace that they took is we are the preeminent healthy snack that tastes great. They came out with all these other flavors and all the stuff. They owned and dominated. And again, if you probably have purchased Holy Guacamole, it was them retreating during a recession and basically saying, we're going to come out stronger on the other side by taking a truly differentiated position. Okay, so let's get to way number 3. And way number 3 kind of ties these two together. We're going to grow smarter, but we're going to do it through authenticity. So that is powerful. The real secret to growing, no matter what is happening externally, is to really anchor into be you. And that's the part where you're great. You know what works to grow your business. Don't even for a second think you don't. Don't even for a second. If your revenue numbers are going down because people are scared, that is not because you're doing anything wrong. It is people are scared. What can you do? Basically, be you. Get out there and meet more people. Let them be scared. I'm here when you're ready. Don't worry about when they buy. When they're ready to buy, they'll buy. You're just there for them until they do. You know what works. The challenge is we start reacting to these external signals, and then we start thinking, I need to do something different. We take our eye off of what we know is working, and it's counterintuitive. How can you do more of what you know works? What's holding you back from doing that? Don't respond. If you've got a bunch of people in your pipeline that haven't moved forward, and you know they're saying they want to move forward and they haven't, it isn't about you. It's about their own fear. Keep in contact with them. Just basically do more until they're ready. And that is such a powerful piece of advice. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. Like, the beautiful thing as a conscious entrepreneur is we are the gift. It's not the business. Business is the solution. It's us as the founder. We're the gift. We're the thing that is unique. And in every case, whether it's a large company like Whole Foods used to be, or a smaller company, the magic is that thing that we bring. And it's so easy to use that external feedback to think that you're doing something wrong when it isn't about you. Just keep doing what you're doing. Go through the process of meeting more friends, go through the process of connecting with them, go through the process of finding out what it is they need. Don't worry about when they buy. They will buy when they're ready to buy. And by the way, for differentiation and demand generation, which are two things that we're known for, there's free training that you can sign up for on the Shiftco website. Feel free to do that. Maybe just walk you through how to do it. But this idea of when we stop, we get out of this relationship building, authentically building our business because we feel afraid. And that's the worst possible thing you can do. So it really is as fundamental as go meet more people and love on them. Go meet more people and be there for them. Go meet more people. Let them know you're here when you're ready. And don't respond to their resistance, their fear, their delays. Just go do your thing. And that is truly, truly, truly the power. I do the things that I enjoy. I don't like live networking, so I don't do a lot of that. I love to speak, so I do a lot of that. Like, do the things that you really love that allow you to meet more people, to grow your friends, to grow your followers, and just serve them until they're ready to buy without attaching to that up and down of, things are stalled. My revenue came down last quarter, because people, so what? Next, keep moving. More people, just meet more people, serve those people, and chill out. Okay. I'm going to, again, there's free training on differentiation and authentic demand generation on our website, but I want to get to these last two because I feel like these are where the game changers really step it up. So way number 4 is one of the best lessons I've ever learned. I learned it by accident, and it really is profound. I was asked to be on the board of this company that was helping professional athletes start businesses. And they, at the first advisory board meeting, they were walking through some statistics. And the statistic that jumped out at me is athletes, collegiate and professional athletes, are 3 times more successful as an entrepreneur than non-athletes. I was like, huh, that got my attention. And I really started understanding why that was. And one of the biggest is this philosophy of athletes make moves. They're not in motion. Athletes make moves. They're not in motion. So when we're in motion, which we might be stuck in motion because there's this negative stuff, and then you have the whole election garbage, and, it's just too much, right? And so we get into this process of being in motion, but we're not actually going anywhere. So we start doing stuff, but we're not really moving the ball down the field. And a move is, I'm going to go from one place to another. A motion is I'm doing stuff. I'm doing my social media. I'm attending the networking. It's almost like I'm on autopilot. I'm doing stuff. I'm busy, but I'm not actually moving the ball down the field. And if you really think about it, what athletes have trained their mind, body, and heart to do is to move. They move the ball down the court. They move the ball down the field, and what they do really well is they focus on small moves. They don't try. It's not always the big swing for the fence and all that kind of stuff. They basically focus on these small moves a little bit forward each day, and they obsessively root out being in motion. Status quo to an athlete, worst possible thing. Being unconscious to an athlete and just doing stuff, worst possible thing for your training regimen. They basically dedicate each time, I'm going to move my practice forward, whatever it is, whether they're a runner or a tennis player, I'm going to move my practice. I'm going to inch it forward by doing a couple of things consciously and deliberately to move the ball down the field. So the reason why I like to bring this up in times like we're in right now is that external pressure that we're feeling and all this drama that's around us. And we know that these yellow lights are turning red and all this kind of stuff. It's put us in a state where we're in motion, and we're like, okay, head down, keep doing stuff, send the email, post on social media, attend the networking event, but we're not moving our business forward. And I think one of my real secrets to success is I have an athlete's focus on my business, and every day I have a list of moves that I can make. And I am obsessively, compulsively focused on inching it forward, moving it forward, and not getting yourself stuck in just that status quo. So before I get to the last way that I recommend from studying people, anybody have comments about that? Because this is one of the fundamental things that I believe every business needs to be doing right now is make moves, don't be in motion.
Terri, could you also correlate that to being strategic?
Yeah, I think it's I would call it focused, and in my strategic planning process, I don't have anything more than 3 priorities that I'm focused on in a year. And to me, that's what strategic means. So I always get a little nervous when people use the word strategic. What it means to me is focus, that I never am focused on more than 3 priorities a year. And usually at best, I can only do 2. Now I'm a high achiever, hyperachiever, crazy person. I want to hit all of them, but it's the focusing on just doing a few things really well, do fewer things better, to me is the key rather than just being strategic. So the word focus to me and clear priorities to me trumps the idea of being strategic, but that could just be wordsmithing.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm Colleen with Zigo. So I love this, and I do it, but never thought of it in a formal way. But now I'm going to formalize it for myself, because I find that, you know, I spend so much time in spreadsheets and down holes and it's really awful. And when I do that, I pull out and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do 3 things that move us forward in a different direction that has nothing to do with whatever I'm doing in the spreadsheet. And it lifts my spirits so much that I feel like I am each day making progress, even though I may have this big looming thing that I'm working on. I'm still making progress on other things. And so it really helps me emotionally to balance out the work.
Oh, I love that, Colleen. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Is it feels better if you take the pressure off. I'm just moving the ball down the field, you know, 1 yard at a time, rather than, I didn't score yet. I move the ball down the field, and just staying focused on the action and making sure that action is movement rather than motion. Lisa, I think I saw your hand up.
I just wanted to make another call out, Terri, to something that you taught me that might be really helpful to everybody, which is the thought of doing, you know, these small steps, but also the steps that fill you with joy, which is kind of was, you know, it's almost like, well, there are these things on my plate that are really challenging. I don't find them joyful. I find them kind of terrifying and hard. So I'm going to ignore them, but then they just seem to get bigger and bigger, like monsters in the closet.
Yeah.
And you taught me when you taught me how to break it down into these small steps and only do the things that I find joyful, like when you were teaching me about social media and what to do, and just do what you love to do. And I was like, okay, well, that makes it really easy. And then all of a sudden, those other moves that seem to be really challenging, all of a sudden they did seem smaller and more attainable. Like I looked and I was like, I can do that. It's really not that big a deal.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to correlate those two pieces as well, how important the joy is, and also just a call out, because again, you know, if we cannot be impacted by the anxiety and really educate ourselves that joy is a much better fuel than fear, and it is extremely potent. And I like to say that was a big pivot for me that I wanted to call out.
Love it. Love it. Trisha, I think you had your hand up, right?
I put it in the chat. I put in what what resonates for me here is in Traction, they talk about the 90-day rocks. So, you know, like 3 to 5 things that you do quarterly to get towards a particular goal. My question is, how do you know what move is small versus big? So I'm not really great at setting a priority and thinking, oh, it's going to only take like a month, but really it's a 6-month move.
Yeah. So here's the distinction. And this is where, you know, I tweaked Traction a little bit, and some of the others that, you know, kind of piggybacked off of their method. I try not to have more than 2 to 3 big priorities, what they call rocks, every year. And then I make a list of the moves that are going to move me forward on that priority. So that's the distinction. So let's say, you know, I want to grow revenue is one of my priorities. And I make a list of 3, 5, 6 things that I can do a little bit every day to basically do that. And I don't focus on, did my revenue grow? That is the end game. I focus on, did I do this move, and did I do it with the intention of moving my business forward? And the power of intention, which we'll talk just a tad bit more about in a minute, is really the key. My goal is to grow my revenue. My intention every day is to move my business forward. And that slight little tweak in the way that Traction teaches it, now my focus is, oh, I'm going to network with these organizations as a way of growing my revenue. That's on my list of moves. And so when I am focused on the priority of growing my business, and I make that move of reaching out and building a connection with an organization that I feel like can help me grow my revenue, I'm not focused on the growing their revenue. I'm focused on the intentional moving the ball down the field, which will lead to scoring points a year from now. Does that make sense in terms of just that slight distinction? All right, we're almost done. I've got one more way. This also is from an athlete's mindset. Remember, athletes are 3 times more successful as entrepreneurs. And it really is the lessons from performance science. How do elite athletes respond when things don't go their way? Pick an athlete. How do elite athletes respond? And this is compliments of something called positive intelligence. I'm a big fan of it. And what athletes do is they instantly use a part of their brain, and it is literally a part of their brain. They develop a part of their brain where they thrive versus where a lot of us go, which is the survival side. And they have trained their brain, no matter what is happening externally, they've trained their brain to have their thoughts go towards the positive. Now, there's a technique that we use in Shift called What If Up. We do it every single month in this thing called Lunch and Leap. Join it, because what If Up is training your brain to do is to think like an athlete. So an athlete, let's just use, football. The athlete basically gets stopped. They tried to advance the ball. They didn't hit the goal. They tried to advance the ball. They fumbled, pick an issue. And, what most of us do is we go into survival mode. Oh, I can't believe it. My team's going to be mad at me. Athletes don't do it. They immediately shift their brain and go, going to get the next one. And they shift their brain to this other side. And they basically, what if up? Well, what if that fumble actually sets me up to get the ball 3 more times so that I can score? And it's a training of your brain. So I highly encourage whatever techniques allow you to shift your brain into overdrive, where you're not responding externally, but you are thinking like an athlete, and remembering that an athlete, every single play they run, they're running into competition. They're running into somebody trying to stop them. What elite athletes do is failure is just preparation. That's the way that they look at it. And if this thing didn't work, the next thing will, and they keep moving the ball forward. So just because we're out of time, I just want to end with that thought. Your business grows as you evolve. So use this time as an opportunity to challenge yourself and level up. This is an opportunity for you to come out of this recession, 2023, 2024, 2025. This is an opportunity for you to evolve your business, your mindset, your game set, and it's, time to go. Feel free to partake in any of our free training. There's differentiation, demand. We work on mindset, the whole bit. It's all free on the website. You can also join us for these live events, New Way Networking, and then Lunch and Leap is a really powerful one. That's where we use that What If Up methodology to use the positive side of our brain to problem solve. It's been an absolute delight of having you guys here. And, this is an opportunity for conscious entrepreneurs to step up. And I'm so glad you joined us. And we'll send you a copy of this recording.